Well, this was a gift I was given at Christmas, and I haven't had any chance to get round to using it yet. And it's an air dry clay, but I think it must be a proper clay as well, because if you've got a kiln, you can fire this. I've just read in the instructions, and it will fire at 1250 degrees. So I'm going to give this a go as an air dry clay. Came with some acrylic paints and some tools, but I've got quite a lot of clay tools, so I'm going to and a sponge. So I'll probably be using my own tools as well for this, and I'm going to make a candle holder, but a candle holder with a difference, of course. This isn't sponsored in any way. This company, Noah Pottery Clay, don't even know I exist. So I'm going to be working on a silicone mat, and I'm going to show you a couple of methods that I'm going to be using or attempting to use to get this into some lovely tea light holders. And like I said, this can be used in a kiln, so it must be quite resistant to high temperatures once it's fired. I'm just going to knead this a little bit. Keep it well wrapped up, any paper clay or air dry clay, because you don't want it drying out as you're using it. And it is going to be a little bit messy as well, so I would strongly suggest you have an apron on. And it does say to knead it well first. It is lovely and smooth. The first ones I'm going to do, I'm going to use a cookie cutter. All I've got here is a rolling pin. Now, if you haven't got a rolling pin, then I would use an empty bottle. Clean it out and clean any paper off it, and then use it from there. Also, don't have it too thin, because you want to make sure that you've got enough there for it to dry and not be too fragile. So there's my first one cut out. And now often with these things, when they're dry, you can sand them down, so we'll be able to look at that. So I'm going to do a couple like that. So now I've got those cut out, I want to have a little indent in there for a candle. I'm going to use this electric candle, although I think as it can be fired, it probably could take a normal candle. Certainly in these ones, I would think it would be all right. So what I'm doing is just making an impression in there, roughly in the middle of where I want my candle to be, like that. And now I'm going to take this tool that came with it and dig out a little bit of this clay, going all the way around. I would imagine as this clay dries, it's going to shrink. Most clay does, so I'm making this a little bit larger than the actual impression that I made to compensate for it if it does shrink. Now we'll flatten this off as much as we can. I wish I had a potter's wheel and a kiln, but then I don't know how to use them, so it'd probably be dangerous. Yeah, that's a bit bigger, going all the way round. And that was just a cookie cutter I used. Now I've just got a little pot of water here that I'm going to use to smooth off this a little bit. And now that one's nice and smooth. I'm going to follow off and do the same with that one. So they're all nice and carved out now. Double check. Yeah, there's plenty of room in there for my candles. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to put that to one side and let that dry. I would say that's going to take several days to dry. I don't think that's going to dry in a day or two. So now I've got those to one side. What I'm going to do is try something a little bit more detailed. Now I've got lots of those different types of molds because I use them in a lot of different things. So look at that heart. That's quite nice. Will the candle fit in the middle of that heart? Yeah, I think I might make one heart one as well using the same method because I quite like that. I'm going to push that down and then I'm going to make a more complicated one, I think. Take that out. Mark me candle where it's going to go there, and then cut that out. And now we'll put that to one side and let that dry until it's fully dry. I'm not going to put it in a curing box or anything like that to start with because I don't want it to crack. But after 24 hours, I might try it and see what happens. So this next one, like I said, I'm going to try something a little bit more complex. So first of all, I'm going to knead my clay because it says you need to knead your clay. And if it gets a little bit too dry, then just add a little bit of water to it and then knead that in. Only a little bit. You don't want to overdo it, I don't think, with this sort of stuff. This certainly doesn't feel like your normal paper clay because I would not even be contemplating when it's dry putting something like a flame near normal paper clay, or certainly not the one that I make or the other ones that I've bought. But I've never known a paper clay where you can fire it. And this doesn't actually call itself a paper clay. Working on a silicone mat isn't the best thing to do, but we'll see in a minute. So what I want to do is create a base for this, and I want it quite a long base Now, I could put 2 sticks either side of this so I can get a nice even thickness, but actually, I'm not bothered about that. I want it to look a little bit rustic. I want it to be about that length, but I am going to try and cut this so it's fairly even size all the way down. So I want it twice the width of that ruler, or maybe a little bit more. That'll do. Just smooth that out a little bit. A little bit of water. And now I want to make a ridge in here for the next bit. And I want to do it at an angle. So draw a little line across the middle. And I want to do this at a slight angle like that. Whether it'll end up at an angle, who knows. And now I'm going to dig out that going all the way along. Just going to smooth off these bits. I'd love to know if we've got any potters or people that use proper clay on a regular basis in the comments, and find out how they started and how it went for them. So if you do, please leave a comment. I'd love to know. Now, what I've found is I haven't left enough space at the back here to put my candles, which was rather silly. So what I'm going to do is quickly make this again, doing the same thing but with a wider bit at the back. See, it never hurts to get things wrong ever. We all do it. Can't worry about that. The best thing to do is just start again, or make the most of what you've got. Well, now I've got that done, what I can do is put my candles here and measure again to cut out some little bits. I'm going to put one on each end like that, and then one roughly in the middle of those. There we are. And now cut those out. Again, making them a little bit bigger than what they actually are, just in case this does shrink quite a lot. This is going to be such a great kid-friendly craft to do with your kids or your grandkids or any sort of children, really. I think they'd love this. I know I would have loved this when I was a kid. So I'm smoothing that down now as much as I need to, getting ready for that to dry. There we go. And now I can move this and put this somewhere to dry as well. And now what I'm going to do is make the pieces or the uprights that are going to fit into that. So first of all, I'm going to roll out my slab or sheet that I'm going to use for this. And I want to make sure that it's thin enough to fit in that slot that I made, which is the base. And soon check that, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to straighten these ends off. And now I can quickly measure that to see if it's right. No, that's far too thick at the moment. So I'm going to roll that out a little bit thinner. Yeah, I think that's going to be perfect. Now what I'm going to do is, I know my base is 18.5. So I'm going to go in at 17.5 here. And I know whatever I make can't be any wider than that, because if not, it's going to hang over the base. And now I can cut my final slab. Now, I'm not sure working on this silicone mat, I thought it'd be the ideal thing to work on, but it isn't. So anybody that uses this sort of clay, let me know what I should be working on. Should it be wood? Let me know in the comments. Yeah, it definitely sticks to this like nobody's business. So now I've got my slab cut out, what I'm going to do is cut myself out 3 pieces of this. I'm not worried about it being even, because I can even that up as I'm doing it. And I want it to look a bit rustic anyway. And with these pieces, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some houses. What I'm going to do is cut myself a roof like that. Draw myself a little line for the roof. And then put myself some windows in. Another window here. Now I want the light to shine through these windows once I've lit my candles. So I've got to take this out. So I'm just using one of my other tools here that I've got. Cut these out. And now all I'm going to do is try and tidy this up a little bit, so it looks a little bit neater by using these tools. And now I'm going to put that to one side with the others to dry. And now I'm going to do the same with this one. And then I'll show you what these look like when they're all cut out and ready to be put aside to dry. So they're all cut out now, and all I'm going to do is leave them there to dry. They'll probably take 2 or 3 days to dry, and then I can come back to them. I want to show you this because I've broken 2 of them when I moved them, and I'm not sure if this is because it's not fully dry, although it feels fully dry, or if it's because it is really fragile. I've made some more, slightly thicker, and I'm going to let them dry out for a little bit longer. Well, these are all dry now. They've been drying for 5 days, and I've had them in somewhere warm. The only thing I would say is they're very light now, And the other thing is, they actually don't feel that robust. And I've not had that with a clay before, like this. I mean, these are going to be able to fit in there, like that, but I wouldn't want to knock these too hard or drop them, because I think they would break quite easily. I would much prefer to make something like this out of resincrete, and what I might do is make some really nice blanks and then make some moulds and make them out of resincrete, but we'll see. That's for future Steve to worry about. What I'm going to do now is paint these with acrylic paints, and then I'll show you what they look like finished. Well, these are all finished now, and I've finished painting them. I have to say, I've got kind of a mixed review over this. I'm a bit disappointed in some of it. This broke across there and also across there. I think that clay is ideal for smaller things like this, and these work really, really well, but for larger pieces like this, it's not great. So I also glued a piece of paper on the back of it as well to help keep it together. What I was actually going for was this, so I could pop these in here like that, and then pop the little candles behind this house so the lights would shine through. And they're little flickering candles. And these ones, they do fit nicely in there. And these last for ages, these little candles. And you can buy them fairly cheap as well. There we go. So like that. I'll turn the lights off in here so you can see what they look like flickering. I think they look quite nice. Overall, I think it would be a great product for playing around with kids to make small things like this, maybe some bowls and things like that. But I would definitely avoid making more fragile things. Overall, it was fun, and putting that paper on the back has really made it nice and sturdy. I hope you've enjoyed this video. It didn't quite turn out how I want it, but I'm not going to show you things looking perfect if they don't come out perfect, because that would be wrong. Be sure to check out the video that I've got coming up next. I think you'll love that one. That's on my own paper clay recipe, and that works really, really well and cures and dries very, very hard. Boot that like button, hit that subscribe button, but most of all, enjoy your crafting. Take care. Bye.